Hi, I'm Kevin Gallagher, Technical Marketing Engineer for F5, and I'd like to show you how to integrate BIG-IP SSL Orchestrator with a Check Point Firewall virtual machine as an explicit proxy. The versions tested in this are F5 BIG-IP version 17.1, SSL Orchestrator version 11, Check Point Gaia version R8120, and Check Point Smart Console version 81.20. So the first step would be to create the following three port groups in VMware. So you have network south, representing connectivity from the BIG-IP to the south, where we have a client computer for testing. Network north is from the north side of the BIG-IP to a server, where we'll be performing some testing. And then this new checkpoint egress is the connection that will go from the BIG-IP to the checkpoint firewall and back again, and that will be an explicit proxy connection. Now I've also created a checkpoint switch here, and these three port groups are attached to the checkpoint switch. Now let's take a look at the BIG-IP virtual network settings. Now here we have VM network, which is used for management, network north and network south for connectivity to the north and the south. And then we have this new checkpoint egress, and that is for explicit proxy connections from BIG-IP to the checkpoint and back. The other interfaces here are not actually used. Let's check the checkpoint firewall virtual network settings. In this case, we have the VM network, which is used for management, and the egress, which is for the explicit proxy connections between the BIG-IP and the checkpoint firewall. And these other network interfaces are not actually used. Let's review the checkpoint firewall configuration. You go to network interfaces, and you can see that we have ETH1 configured here. And that's really the only interface that we are going to use, and it has an IP address of 10.0.0.5. We need some sort of route, typically a default gateway or a static route, so that the checkpoint knows where to send the responses. So in this case, we have a route for 192.168.0.0. and that represents the subnet on the north side of the BIG-IP, and we have a web server at 192.168.0.5 where we'll be doing the testing. And so basically this route just says for anything 192.168, send it to 10.0.0.1. Okay, we are now using the Smart Console for Checkpoint. We are logged in. In this case, we're going to configure Firewall 1. And what we need to do is enable this HTTP/HTTPS proxy. It is enabled. We have it set for non-transparent mode. For access control, we have it set to a specific interface, that 10.0.0.5. And for ports, we have both of these ports listed here. And we'll be using port 8080 for the testing. I normally go ahead and just click OK here for setting it up for the first time. And then if we bring this back up again and go to Network Management, you want to go Get Interfaces with Topology. And it should look something like this. Keep in mind we're not using ETH2, we're only interested in ETH1, 10.0.0.5, and it's hard to tell, but it has the route listed here for 192.168.0.0. Normally you click to accept and then publish the changes. And you may need to specify certain interfaces as external or internal, and you can do that right from here. set it to internal right there. And once making these changes, you would click the publish option and make sure that this gets published. Now, you go over to security policies and then policy. In this rule, I changed the default action here from drop to accept. This isn't necessarily best practices for a firewall policy, but this is a closed network, and we're just doing this for demonstration purposes. But under NAT, you will need to create a rule to allow the explicit proxy connectivity. You want to set the original source to 10.0.0.1, which is the IP address assigned to the BIG-IP SSL Orchestrator. And the destination address, 10.0.0.5, and that is the IP assigned to the Check Point Firewall. And then keep these as any and original, and change the translated source to 10.0.0.5. Once making these changes, you'll want to click the install policy and verify that the policy installs correctly. Okay, so at this point, the Check Point Firewall should be configured properly with an access control policy and NAT. Next, we will review the BIG-IP SSL Orchestrator settings. We want to check the VLANs. And we have the egress VLAN here for the explicit proxy connections from BIG-IP to Check Point and back. We have the network north and south VLANs representing connectivity to the north and the south of the BIG-IP. Now we need to create at least one self IP for connectivity. This is the self IP for connectivity to and from the BIG-IP to the Check Point Firewall for the explicit proxy connections. It's assumed that you have SSL Orchestrator configured with a topology, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go add the service. Go inline HTTP and generic. Call this checkpoint. Uncheck this option to auto manage. Make sure this is set to explicit. For to service configuration, we'll choose that 10. Subnet there. And for the proxy device, and the deployment was successful. And when finished, it should look something like this. We check the services over here. You can see that it shows that IP address there and everything appears to be healthy. So now we want to test the configuration. So we have a client computer over here that's on the south side of the SSL Orchestrator. And we have this website here at 192.168.0.5. So if we refresh a couple times here, we can see that this site is accessible. Now, let's go over to the Smart Console. Okay, so here I am back on the Check Point Smart Console, and I'm going to come over here to Logs and Monitor, and I want to look for a connection that represents what we just tested there. Okay, here we go. Got this entry here from 10.0.0.1. And if we double click, we can see that was a connection on TCP port 8080, as expected, to the Check Point Firewall on 10.0.0.5. It matched our NAT rule. You can see here TCP high ports traffic accepted. So this completes the configuration of the BIG-IP SSL Orchestrator with the Check Point Firewall. At this point, traffic that flows through SSL Orchestrator will be decrypted and sent to the Check Point service and inspected for malicious payloads or policy violations. Thanks for taking the time to view this video.